I think the most notorious situation now is the Alien Enemies Act, which you mentioned in your introduction. We heard that President Trump was going to invoke this 1798 law that's only been invoked 3 times in our country's history, all during major wars, that can only be used during wars, and he was going to invoke it during peacetime against a regular criminal organization.
Why did he choose the Alien Enemies Act when there were other enforcement statutes?
Well, that's a great question, and I think it was theatric. So we're going to invoke these wartime laws, and we're going to try to eliminate all due process. But everyone knows there are plenty of laws on the book if they wanted to remove someone who actually had committed a criminal offense or was a gang member. And notably in our case is challenging that former high-level Republican officials of the Justice Department, spanning many, many administrations, put in a friend of the court brief saying, we would never have invoked this military law, never even thought about doing that, because there's plenty of laws on the books to remove actual criminal immigrants. And so they went ahead and invoked this. We got into court in time, and an emergency hearing on a Saturday night, the judge issued an order saying, let's slow down, we're not sending anybody to this notorious prison until we can have a full hearing. Nonetheless, the Justice Department or the administration transferred the men to El Salvador late Saturday night, early Sunday morning. The president of El Salvador tweeted, oopsie, the courts are too late. Secretary Rubio liked it. And then the Justice Department the next day filed in court saying, oh, we didn't think the order applied because the planes had already taken off outside U.S. airspace. That was just deliberately a pretext. It's absolutely clear, and now from a whistleblower, we know for sure they deliberately violated this order. And so Judge Boasberg is rightly infuriated, saying, you may disagree with policies, but it's fundamental to this country that you cannot violate a court order. You can appeal it, but you can't violate a court order, especially if it means men ending up in a notorious prison and be tortured. So he is trying to get to the bottom of it, and the Trump Justice Department is refusing to give over all the information he wants, and they continue to appeal it. I don't know if we're going to end up in the Supreme Court, but the stakes are enormous. If the Justice Department can get away with violating court orders and deliberately doing so, I mean, then we're in a whole different world than you and I have ever known.
Well, that's called a constitutional crisis.
You know, that you're putting your finger on it. You know, what I view as a constitutional crisis, at least my own definition, is if the Justice Department were the executive branch were to say, look, the Supreme Court has issued an order, we understand that order, but we are going to violate it anyway because you, the Supreme Court, you, the courts, don't have an army to back up your orders. We haven't reached that point.
This was Andrew Jackson saying, so, Chief Justice Marshall has made his order and they'll let him enforce it. We're not really sure he said that, but he's
right.
quoted as having said that.
Right, and so some people feel like we're in just about that position because the Justice Department is so openly defying the courts, even though they're claiming they're not. You know, I sort of have defined the constitutional crisis, rightly or wrongly, as that narrow where they actually admit they're doing it. But a lot of people feel like what happened with Judge Boasberg was so deliberate and so obvious that it's effectively a constitutional crisis. Now, we'll see what ultimately happens, but at some point, Judge Boasberg has to be able to enforce his orders. Otherwise, we're in a dangerous, slippery slope.